Released in 1982 by Atari, Haunted House for the Atari 2600 is one of the earlier examples of survival horror in video games, though it's very different from the genre's more modern iterations. With its simple gameplay mechanics, eerie atmosphere, and innovative use of graphics for its time, Haunted House remains a unique and memorable part of retro gaming history. In Haunted House, players control a small, pixelated figure, simply known as the Adventurer, as they navigate a haunted mansion to find pieces of a hidden urn. The catch: the house is filled with ghosts and monsters, and the adventurer is virtually blind. The screen is mostly black, with only a small circle of light illuminating a tiny area around the character. This creates a sense of claustrophobia and dread, as players can't see what's ahead of them and must rely on memory and intuition to avoid dangers and find the urn pieces. The goal is to retrieve the urn's 3 pieces and return to the starting point while avoiding various monsters that appear in the darkness. There's a definite sense of tension, as you'll constantly be moving and adjusting to the little visibility the light offers. This creates a unique kind of suspense, especially in contrast to the more action-focused games of the era. For the Atari 2600, Haunted House is a bit of a visual marvel. While the graphics are limited due to the console's capabilities, the atmosphere is incredibly well realized. The flickering of the light, the sense of isolation, and the haunting sounds of the mansion all come together to create a surprisingly eerie experience. The sound design, while not overly complex, is effective in heightening the tension. The game features ominous sound effects and the occasional ghostly noise that adds to the unsettling mood. The use of simple sound cues to alert players to the presence of monsters is a neat touch, as it makes the gameplay more about listening and reacting as much as it is about strategy. The difficulty of Haunted House can be unforgiving. The random placement of monsters, combined with the limited visibility, makes it easy to become overwhelmed. The ghosts and monsters are unpredictable, making each playthrough a challenge. In this way, Haunted House has a lot of replay value for those who enjoy testing their patience and memorization skills. However, its gameplay can feel repetitive after extended periods. Once you get the hang of the mansion layout and the monster patterns, it may lose some of its challenge. That said, the tension and atmosphere can keep you engaged for a few rounds at a time. Haunted House was one of the first video games to introduce a horror theme, predating the genre's more popular entries by a decade or more. While horror-themed arcade games like Dark Chambers and the Ghosts and Goblins series were on the horizon, Haunted House stood out for its atmosphere and tension-building mechanics. By using the limitations of the Atari 2600, where graphics and sound were minimal, it was able to create an experience that focused more on suspense, mood, and player imagination. The game's reliance on near-total darkness and minimal visual cues to create tension was innovative. It didn't need explicit gore or overt horror imagery. Instead, it relied on the psychological elements of the game to build fear. This approach would be echoed in future survival horror games, such as the Resident Evil series, which similarly used limited visibility, sound design, and a claustrophobic atmosphere to induce fear. While Haunted House may seem basic by today's standards, it was a precursor to many important design principles in video games. The notion of using limited resources, whether it be visual, auditory, or physical space, to affect gameplay was ahead of its time. For instance, the dim lighting in Haunted House forced players to rely on memorizing layouts and anticipating threats, which directly influenced how players interact with environments in games like Amnesia, The Dark Descent, or Outlast. Additionally, the non-linear progression, where players had to explore different rooms in a mansion to find pieces of an urn, helped lay the groundwork for exploration-driven games that would later become a hallmark of survival horror titles. The game's reliance on memorization and strategic movement to avoid monsters also mirrors the mechanics found in many modern stealth games. Overall, Haunted House for the Atari 2600 is a charming and atmospheric piece of gaming history. Despite its simple mechanics and minimalistic graphics, it creates a genuinely tense and spooky experience, which is impressive for a console with such limited power. It's an early experiment in horror-themed gaming, and while it may not have the depth or polish of later titles in the genre, it's still a delightful throwback to a time when developers had to get creative with what little they had. For fans of retro gaming, or anyone looking to explore the early roots of the horror genre in video games, Haunted House is a must-play title.